So I'm looking at making a coin maze in this video, next series of videos. Who knows? Who knows how far this is going to go? But this coin maze, I've seen these before. This is actually taken from a tutorial on the techsoft.co.uk website, which is a UK laser cutting company. And they make theirs in clear acrylic, so you can see where the coin is. And I saw that and I thought to myself, well, that's not very sustainable. Can I make it from card? But of course, if you make it from card, you can't see where the coin is, which makes it very difficult to navigate through the maze. So what I've done here is I've put in a trace or an engraving of the maze in each case. Now, for this particular puzzle, there's 1, 2, 3 layers of maze happening here with some thin cards separating each layer. So I'll look at that later when I'm putting this all together and the updated model that I'm going to make with you. Um, and then there's a piece of 3mm modeling card on the front and the back just to sort of hold it all together. I did think about replacing this modeling card with thin card for even more sustainability, but I just feel as if it wouldn't be kind of rigid enough. Um, I've also realized with this, well, let me just show you how it works first of all. I've got a euro trolley coin there. I'm going to put it in, and this represents level 1. I'm not going to go all the way through. I'm just going to show you some parts of level 1 here. So here we are. This cross in my example here represents the starting point. And notice I want to get to this cross, which then goes to level 2 to this point here. And I have to navigate around through that maze to this point, which then goes to level 3. And then I then have to navigate my way out to the exit, which is on the other side, this same top corner. Okay, anyway, we're back to level 1. So I'm going to drop that in. It's now there. Run it to the side. In fact, it's going to come all the way down to there now because I'm kind of at an angle here. It's gone down to there. Now I want to come across, down, and across. Now, according to my calculations, the coin is now here. I want to try and get it back out again. So it's obviously I'm going to come across to the left, which is not obviously what you normally do, but just to speed things up. Now I believe I'm here. Now this is a tricky one because I've got to get it back into this little slot here. And this is where you can make some interesting little challenges. I'm going to have to tip it to the right here and then tip it down, and I want it, give it a little tap there. I want it to slide into there. Now I've not heard that go yet. I hope it has. Now that's going to go to there, across, and whew, it worked, and we've got the coin again. Well, come on, there you go. Okay, so that's the idea behind that particular sustainable coin maze. Now, what I've done, I want to make a new one with you today in this video, is try to map out some other maze ideas. So I've got some 5mm gridded paper here, and I tried to map this out without any guidelines, and it ended up being really quite difficult to do. So what I realized was the best thing to do here is actually put some little kind of crosses down that indicate where the midpoints of this kind of maze trail are. You'll see when I'm working with techsoft design, which is the CAD software we're going to use for laser cutting this, that that working with these dots and working with that same structure in techsoft with the grid really helps simplify the whole manufacturing process. So what I'm going to do here, this is like level 1 in effect of a new design. And here I want to have a level 2, and I'm just going to put in some crosses. And what I'm doing here is I'm making sure the crosses are all 50mm or 3 squares apart. And that's because when I draw, let's see this, let's put a few more in here first. Okay, I'm just going to pause there for a second. I can see in this maze here, I've not annotated this yet, but this is where I'm going to be dropping the coin in. It works its way around here. This is where it then is going to go to level 2. And level 2 is basically, you know, I can see it's 1, 2, 3 crosses along and 1, 2 crosses up. So it's going to be, in this case, 1, 2, 3 along and 1, 2 up. So that is where I'm going to be having this coin drop into level 2, and you'll notice now that as I'm drawing, I don't know what I'm going to do here, but as I'm drawing this out, I can see how I've got the wall separating each of these channels in the maze, hence the idea of it being 50mm or 3 squares apart, even though the actual channels are only 2 squares apart. And of course, to finish this off, I'm going to run down that last run like that. So effectively what I've got here is I've made sure there's a centimeter separating each maze layer out here. So that's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 squares, or 2 centimeters. And if I wanted to here, I could start to sort of divide this up. I mean, that's a dreadful line I've got there. But let's just run a line down here, and I can start to divide these drawings up so I can clearly see there's a separation between them, etc. Okay. And you might want to space things out a little bit more. I was just trying to make sure that I wasn't using up too much material. Now, the reason why I've gone here with this number of channels, i.e. I've basically got space here for 4 vertical channels and 5 horizontal channels, is I'm thinking about sustainability of the material. If I do it like this, effectively on a sheet of A4 paper, I can have 1, 2, oops, can you see that properly there? 1, 2 laser cut onto one height of A4. Now, this card is actually in bigger sheets, but it means that I can fit it in there with minimum waste material. So that's my logic behind working with this number of channels. I've also done some research into how big the coins need to be. So let's have a quick look at that. So what I've got here are Swiss franc diameters, and I can see here that 1 franc is 23.2. I could also work with half franc. I think you can also work with 20 centimes as well. And if I do a search here for euro coin diameter, that's coming in at 23.25. So 23.2 and 23.25, they're very, very close. That means, of course, that this coin here is going to be 23.25. Yeah, so when I'm making the slots, the runs in here, I'm actually setting them to 24 millimeters in diameter, and you'll see that in a second in techsoft design. So let's just pause this for a second. So here we are in techsoft design, and first thing I'm going to do here is right click on the grid lock, and I'm going to, as usual, put in my 5 millimeter pale blue lined grid. Okay, and I'm wanting to have these slots to be 24 millimeters in diameter, because I know that my coins are about 23.2 or 23.25. So I'm going to hold the mouse button down here on the draw tool and go, or circle tool, should I say, and draw a circle with a given center and radius. I want to put this to 12 millimeters, which is going to, of course, give me a diameter of 24. So that's going to be bigger than I want it to be. And let's just start in the top left corner here, and let's just draw a circle. In fact, no, let's come down to the bottom left. Let's draw it about there, just suitably in from the side there, so I've got a little bit of working space. Okay, so what I want to do effectively is have a bunch of circles all mapped out. And I can see that if I stay on the grid here, I can see that really the wall that's separating these channels is minuscule. It's going to effectively be 2 millimeters. And I think that's going to be too little. I want to have a little bit more. But if I come to a 5 millimeter, snap to the next 5 millimeter grid line, then effectively that's ending up being 7 millimeters. In fact, I can just confirm that now. If I just get a dimension line tool, come on to step lock, which is currently set to 1 millimeter, then that is coming in there, and that is giving me, 6, sorry, excuse me. Okay. So that's probably too much. So what I'm going to do here is come back onto step lock settings, and I'm going to go for a step spacing of 2.5, which is going to be half of 5. So it's just giving me this little bit finer resolution. Let's just get rid of that circle and that dimension line. I'm going to come back to my 24 millimeter diameter circles, and now notice I felt that was too narrow, but now I can see the center point of this circle is now the midpoint of the grid. And if I click there, let's have a see, how can I define the distance between these 2 points? Let's just draw a line in there. Let's come to the delete path tool. Let's delete the part in the middle. Let's now get the dimension line, turn off step lock and grid lock, turn on the attach tool, and now I can snap onto that endpoint, snap onto that endpoint, and that is giving me a dimension of 3.5 millimeters precisely. So the key thing is here, I am really designing with intent. And I want to have a sufficiently wide channel separating, or sufficiently wide wall separating the channels that the coins passes down, but not so wide that I'm using an excessive material. Okay, so let's just undo those steps. Don't want those lines in there. Let's just make sure attach tool is off. Let's make sure that step lock is back on again. And now I can keep on drawing in some circles, and I can see here that's going to be on the grid, and then this one is going to be slightly off the grid. Now, at this point, there's lots of things I could do here. I could take these, I could copy them, and I could paste them above. I'm going to have a look at another thing that we can do here. I'm actually going to come to the dimension line tool for a second here. I'm just going to confirm the distance between the midpoint of those two first circles. That's going to be at 27.5 millimeters. So I know that I want to have another 4 rows of these to create the vertical columns. So knowing that they're 27.5 millimeters across, I'm going to select those 4. I'm going to come to the transformation tool, and I'm going to come to a rectangular array. Now I want to here have no more columns. Well, I've already got my 4 columns, so I'm going to put that down to just 1 column of those 4, if that makes sense. Number of rows, though, I want to have 5 rows in total. The X spacing here is going to be 0 because I don't want to have anything spaced out in the X axis, but my Y spacing vertically up the grid here is going to be same as the spacing of the circles, which is 27.5 millimeters. I click on OK, and I instantly get the remaining circles. So that's a really interesting tool there. And as I say, I could have just copied and pasted, but it's another thing we can use. And let's just double check again here the dimensions separating these. So I'm just going to double check the dimensions separating those there, for example. And that also is going to be 27.5. So here again, I am working with intent. There's nothing random about this design. Every decision I'm making is a design decision with intent. Okay, let's get rid of those dimension lines there. This is looking really good. Something that I also want to have here in this design is the fact that it's got some holes for bolts to go through. They are M3 bolts. And I've also here got obviously a wall to this, and I've just chamfered the corners on here as well. So let's just have a quick look at how I'm going to do that. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to put in those M3 bolts. I'm going to come back to the circle with a given center and radius. Now, M3 bolts have a diameter of 3 millimeters, which would be a radius of 1.5, but I'm going to put the radius in here as 1.6, which is going to give me a diameter of, nope, sorry, 6, excuse me, a diameter of 3.2. So it's 0.2 millimeters, slightly oversized, but that's because I want to have a little bit of a tolerance here. If I have it exactly 3 millimeters, then, the bolt will go through one layer of card here. Will it go through multiple layers of card? If they're slightly misaligned, or if there's a slight, I don't know, little bit of card that hasn't been thoroughly cut properly, I just want to just provide a little bit of tolerance there to make sure that this bolt passes through nice and smoothly. So that's my thinking. Again, it's a design intent that I'm applying here. Let's click on OK there, and I'm thinking here that this bolt, let's see, because I've got my step lock on, and my step lock is with a 2.5 millimeter grid spacing, which is half of the major grid here. I can see I can snap onto the blue lines. I can also snap onto these midpoints as well, and I actually rather like the look of that. I think that's going to be rather nice. Let's put one there. Notice here that because the edge of the circle here is kind of midpoint of the square, I'm going to line it up like this. But over here, I'm actually going to be on the line because of the way that this has been spaced out. Another way to approach this is if I come to the radial lock tool, I'm going to right click on radial lock. I'm going to only activate this when line drawing with a 45-degree step angle. Just check this out. I can draw a line here. Now I've got radial lock turned on. When I'm drawing, it's either going to be horizontal, vertical, or at 45 degrees. And notice how that line is 45 degrees from this circle. I can do exactly the same over here. Okay, and now if I come up to the top here and just click on this, I get the same idea. Now, of course, I don't have to do this. Okay, I'm just showing you that everything that I'm doing here has intent. Okay, so those are my holes in place, and now I'm going to think to myself about having the external wall that defines the cutout for this box. So let's go to our rectangular tool here, and now my thinking is, well, how close to the circles, and particularly the bolts, do I want this edge to be? I feel as if I have my edge here, it's too close. So I'm going to right click there, and I'm going to instead going to click here. That gives me 2.5 millimeters plus, let's see, that was 3.2 millimeters, so that's going to be roughly an extra 2 millimeters. I think that's going to be enough. Let's bring it up here. Let's bring it out to here, and I'm just visually going to inspect that. That looks like it's approximately square all the way around. Liking that a lot. Last thing that I've got here with my model here is, because I've got this idea of kind of like round themes, I'm going to fillet the corners. Okay, so, whoopsie daisy. Let's come back to techsoft here. Okay, let's come to the fillet tool, which is going to be this arcs tool, and the fillet tool is right at the end. And I'm going to have here a 5mm radius fillet. And the reason for me thinking this is that if I put this on here, it kind of follows the profile of this little bolt here. You can try different fillet radii, but I feel as if that's nice. In fact, it is. It's literally, that is going to be from there, 2.55. So that just follows the profile of that bolt hole, which I really like. So again, everything here is being done with design intent. Okay, click and click. Fantastic. So that's my basic template in place. I think here what I'm going to do is just delete those lines. And let's see, that is nice. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to save this with a sensible file name. I'm going to pause this video, I think, at this point. And when we come back, I'm going to proceed with the creation of, here we are, of this design here. I'll explain more about that in the next video. So see you then.